It hasn't always been the prettiest performance, but England keep winning.
Because England had to suffer in that, particularly in that second half. And when he goes on about mentality, the way they found a way to get back into the game, the way they kept going.
They have trailed, they have gone down to 10 men, and they have been pushed into extra time. Yet time and time again, individual brilliance and mental strength have pulled them through.
Once again, England fans were made to sweat, but once again, they get across the finish line.
And what we cannot doubt with this team is the mentality that they have and the grit.
You can thank Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane.
What we have looked like, we've got an exceptional individual or two in Bellingham and Kane.
England started the World Cup looking amazing. Their performance versus Croatia was the complete opposite of what we had seen from England in previous tournaments. But it was a false dream. Since then, England had gone back to what they do best, just grinding out results. Against Ghana, they were held to a 0-0 draw. Against Panama, it took a Bellingham and Kane masterclass to get the 3 points. Now, people at the time didn't care too much because, hey, England topped the group. But the next match gave England fans a real heart attack. They looked dead in the water against the Democratic Republic of Congo. They were second to every tackle, constantly on the back foot. It genuinely looked like we were about to see one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. But then, Harry Kane took over.
Called in for Kane! Harry Kane! It's Kane!
Once again, it wasn't the prettiest, but they got the job done. Their reward was a round of 16 clash versus Mexico at the Azteca. More than 80,000 fans, the altitude, the noise, and a home crowd behind one of the tournament's most informed teams. Because remember, Mexico had not conceded a goal up to that point. It doesn't get much tougher than that. But England actually stunned the stadium early. Jude Bellingham took over, scoring 2 brilliant goals in just 98 seconds to put the Three Lions ahead and silence the Azteca. Mexico, though, responded before halftime to cut the deficit. But the match really changed in the 54th minute when Jarell Quansah was sent off after a VAR review. Suddenly, England had to play more than half an hour with 10 men against the hosts. Most teams would have fallen apart. England didn't. Harry Kane settled everyone's nerves by calmly converting a penalty to restore a 2-goal lead. Mexico hit back immediately with a penalty of their own, setting up a frantic final half hour. Because at that point, it all became about survival. Tuchel even brought on the massive fridge that is Dan Burn. It was exactly the kind of gritty, backs against the wall performance that championship teams often have to produce. After surviving the chaos of the Azteca, England barely had time to catch their breath before another huge test awaited them. This time it was Erling Haaland and a disciplined Norway side that had become one of the stories of the tournament. England found themselves behind once again, but just like he had done all tournament, Jude Bellingham stepped up when England needed him the most.
That was well done. Into Jude Bellingham. Bellingham with the equaliser. Rodgers lets fly. It's 2-1 England.
Once again, it wasn't England's most dominant performance, but they showed resilience and a knack for finding big moments when they mattered the most. Now that begs the question, can this be the team that finally brings it home?
In the last 3 World Cups, a semi-final, a quarter-final, now a semi-final. And respectfully for your teams, that didn't happen, that level of consistency.
No. England is a country where the passion for football runs deep. It's not just a sport, but rather the pride of an entire nation. Every 2 years, one team carries the heavy burden of the country's expectation on their shoulders. In the beginning of each year, there is a hope that it's coming home. But with high hopes, we see some random performances by England's players. Tournament after tournament, England has failed at the most important stage. Despite the talent on the pitch, they have continuously crumbled, struggling to coordinate players with high egos and world-class talent.
It just didn't happen for us. Again, you know, it's too hard to put a stamp on a reason why we didn't. We just fell short on penalties or not being good enough.
The England national team has historically suffered from the curse of high expectations. One of the earliest instances was at the 1950 World Cup, where they were defeated 1-0 by the United States. This was their first World Cup after rejoining FIFA and one of the most embarrassing defeats in the team's history. At the time, England was considered a powerhouse in the footballing world. After all, they're the ones who created the sport.
I mean, you know, the fact that England, was almost the birthplace of soccer.
England is the joint oldest national team in football, having played in the world's first international football match in 1872 against Scotland. Despite being such a historically significant team, England has always had mixed records in major international tournaments. While they did win the World Cup on home soil in 1966, their performances in subsequent tournaments often fell short of expectations. They failed to qualify at all for the 1984 Euros. They reached the quarterfinals 2 years later in the World Cup, but were eliminated by the hand of God. In the 1988 Euros, they lost every single match. But it is usually when the expectations are at their lowest that England tends to produce the best performance. With such a disappointing Euros exit, the expectations for the national team weren't too high. With no pressure from the media or fans on their shoulders, England had one of the best ever performances in the 1990 World Cup, finishing fourth. They lost on penalties against West Germany after a closely contested semi-final. Despite losing to Italy in the third place playoff, the members of the England team were given bronze medals identical to the Italians. The team were welcomed home as heroes and thousands of people lined the streets. The performance had given English fans hope, creating an expectation on the players to reach the same stage again.
As if sometimes that the whole situation is to suit the media and not the footballers.
The curse of high expectations is a phenomenon where, despite having a strong lineup and a significant fan following expecting high performances, the team fails to deliver when it matters the most. This was the theme for the England national team in the 1990s and 2000s.
England are out of the European Championship, beaten 6-5 on a penalty shootout.
They failed to win any matches at UEFA Euro 1992 and then failed to qualify for the 1994 FIFA World Cup. Then in the Euro 2000s, England was eliminated in the group stages. This was a good England squad which included David Beckham, Alan Shearer, Michael Owen, Paul Scholes, and even Steven Gerrard. A talented side with a mixture of young up-and-coming players combined with experienced players that had played for the national team before. In their first group game against host nation Portugal, England came out firing. The English had a 2-0 lead within 18 minutes. But as we have seen from the England national team, it's when there's an expectation for them to win that leads to their downfall. Goals from Figo, João Pinto, and Nuno Gomes helped Portugal come back and defeat the English 3-2. A disappointing start. The next match was against Germany. Mateus, Ballack, Oliver Kahn. Germany was stacked. England also historically had a terrible track record against them, with very little expectation of a result, with no real pressure on their shoulders. England beat Germany thanks to a goal from Alan Shearer. A great result that put them in a prime position to go through. A tie in their last group match against Romania would be enough, but the curse of high expectations showed up again. Romania took the lead from a goal by Chivu. England equalized, then took the lead thanks to Michael Owen, but Romania equalized minutes later. 2-2 was not an ideal result, but a tie would have been enough for England. But in the 89th minute, everything changed. Phil Neville slid in trying to win the ball back, but ended up fouling. A terrible error in the dying moments of the game. Gania, a substitute, stepped up and scored. A famous victory for Romania, heartbreak for England. With Kevin Keegan resigning shortly after the disappointing exit of the Euros, Sven-Goran Eriksson took charge of the national team.
We must hope is that we're going to play good football and do good results. If we don't do results, of course, they will try to hang me, but even if I was an Englishman, they hang me. So that's
dubbed as the golden generation of England, there was massive expectation on the players' shoulders. Terry, Ferdinand, Lampard, Gerrard, Beckham, Owen, all of these players were doing exceptionally well domestically for their clubs and were in conversation for the best in the world in their position. Michael Owen, for example, had won the Ballon d'Or, and Beckham was a Galactico signing. They were seen as the nucleus of the team. The term golden generation was coined in 2001 by the FA chief executive Adam Crozier. It put such an insane amount of pressure and expectation on the players that some players like Frank Lampard spoke out.
Wish we could have done better. I never really enjoyed a World Cup, and I hate that because the World Cup was like the dream, and for me personally it didn't go great, so I was carrying that around with me for the whole month or 6 weeks. So.
Despite the amount of talent in the squad, England barely qualified for the 2002 World Cup thanks to a masterclass from David Beckham. They ended up losing to Brazil in the quarterfinals, but the fans weren't too disappointed. That Brazil team was stacked with superstars, and they ended up winning the whole thing anyway. There was a belief that the young players would take away valuable experience from that World Cup and be better prepared for future tournaments. In the 2004 Euros, they got all the way to the quarterfinals. Despite blowing a 1-0 lead against France, England beat Switzerland and Croatia thanks to the performance of the newest member of the Golden Generation, 18-year-old Wayne Rooney.
Back for Rooney. Wayne Rooney is in for England again.
In the quarterfinals, England went up against Portugal. They took a 1-0 lead after just 2 minutes thanks to a goal from Michael Owen. Rooney was looking unstoppable, shredding the Portuguese defense. But when he got injured, everything changed. Portugal were now on the front foot and they tied the game thanks to Helder Postiga. England ended up losing the match on penalties. In 2006, England arguably had their best team, and there was immense pressure on their shoulders. The majority of the golden generation players were in their prime, and now had plenty of experience under their belts from the past 2 tournaments.
We had the best midfield players in the world at the time.
Yep.
Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes, Beckham, Hargreaves, Carrick, I mean, it can go on.
But we have seen how England and expectations go. They were only able to beat Paraguay from an own goal. Then in the second game, were held scoreless for 83 minutes until Crouch and Gerrard scored to seal a 2-0 win. But their performances were not reflective of a team that was deemed to be golden. In the round of 16, they played Ecuador. Once again, they struggled. They were held scoreless for 60 minutes until Beckham scored a free kick. So far, in all of their matches, England were the overwhelming favorites. They were expected to not just win, but to win big. Going into yet another quarterfinal, England faced a familiar enemy, Portugal. For many, this was the clash between 2 golden generations. For both countries, this was a last dance. It was the opportunity to finally realize a World Cup dream, or end the hopes of international success for many of the players as they would be past their prime by 2010. For England, it was also an opportunity to get revenge on Portugal after losing to them 2 years prior. With the pressure of the entire nation on their back, the English squad looked exhausted and collapsed. Rooney lost his head, getting sent off, and despite the amount of talent in England's midfield, there was a lack of creativity, and when they did get in front of goal, their finishing was poor. Another exit on penalties for the Three Lions. The Guardian columnist Paul Wilson blamed the defeat on what he perceived to be arrogance from the players. Part of the arrogance comes from the hype and publicity that was around the team. Because Liverpool won the European Cup a year before, and because Arsenal knocked out Real Madrid to reach the 2006 Champions League final, English fans felt like they were on top of the world. Ashley Cole, Wayne Rooney, Steven Gerrard are all good players, but even with these talents, all of them have suffered from the pressure of playing for their country. Paul Wilson said it best when he said, England have always been a bit of rose-tinted about their place in the world order. But the Eriksson years will go down as a decadent period of wild over-optimism and blatant self-delusion.
We didn't play very well. We struggled to beat Greece. We had a lot of free kicks and Beckham had missed them all, more or less.
For all the people that blamed Eriksson's coaching, they had nothing to say when England failed to qualify for the 2008 Euros under Steve McLaren. But like we saw in previous years, England's best performances tend to come right after their worst ones. Coincidence? Or is that literally how the England national team works? Zero expectations makes them play their best football. The expectation of the fans and the media began to swing to the other side of the pendulum. Instead of blind optimism, they turned to expecting nothing. It's at these moments where there's no belief or expectation on the shoulders of the England players where they played their best. Fabio Capello came in and England went from a team that missed out on the Euros to a team that won all of their qualifying games to the 2010 FIFA World Cup. They were even considered World Cup contenders. But now, going into the World Cup undefeated meant increased pressure on the team. Articles came out telling fans to dream under Capello. Prime Minister David Cameron declared Capello to be the most important man in the country. With many of the same players as in 2006, England entered the 2010 FIFA World Cup with media optimism that the golden generation would succeed. England drew their opening 2 games, leading to questions about the team's spirit, tactics, and ability to handle pressure. They did progress to the next round, but were embarrassed by Germany 4-1. Rio Ferdinand claimed that the pressure of the golden generation tag had a negative effect on the players, restricting their ability to perform to their full potential for the nationals. But this curse for England didn't stop after the golden generation. They were eliminated at the group stage in the 2014 World Cup. 2 years later, they lost to Iceland in the round of 16. When England are hyped up and favorites for a game, they collapse. When there is minimal expectation and everybody counts them out, they usually perform much better. When Gareth Southgate was appointed as the England manager, there wasn't much hype. In fact, at first, he was the interim manager, with no indication that he would get the job on a permanent basis. He had led the national team to 7 points from a possible 9 in World Cup qualifying, and they led Group F by 2 points following a 3-0 win over Scotland. Despite all of this, when the 2018 World Cup came around, there was very little expectations on the English players. After all, this was not a golden generation. England beat Tunisia thanks to a late winner from Harry Kane. Then they absolutely spanked Panama 6-1. A second place finish in the group stages meant that England would face Colombia. Harry Kane opened up the scoring with a penalty. It looked like England was going to hold on to a win, but Yerry Mina scored in the 93rd minute to equalize, sending the game to pens. England ended up being victorious. In the quarterfinals, they played against Sweden, beating them 2-0 thanks to goals from Maguire and Dele Alli. Before this match, there wasn't much expectations for England. Kane was seen as the only truly world-class player on the team, and they were being led by a guy who only just recently was coaching the under-21s. So you can only imagine that not a single person in England thought this team was any good. But now that England had reached the World Cup semi-finals for the first time since 1990, expectations began to rise. Once again, England were dreaming, with pundits and media members asking the question, who says England cannot be the team to overturn the odds once more? But once again, English fans found out, don't put too high of expectations on this team. England were beaten by Croatia in extra time despite taking the lead. They lost the third place match to Belgium as well. Fortunately, this England team maintained some momentum going into the next major tournament. England topped their group, beating Croatia thanks to a goal from Raheem Sterling. A bit of revenge, you could say. Then, England beat Germany 2-0 in the round of 16. Now, this was by no means a star-studded Germany team, but given England's history against Germany, this was seen as a massive win. Most fans and pundits had expected a loss, but that's when England shines the most. The scenes at the final whistle demonstrated just how important this win was for Southgate and England. The next round, England took care of business as they beat Ukraine 4-0. This was an impressive result, as normally when England faces another nation that they're favorites against, they tend to get complacent. Harry Kane opened up the scoring in the 4th minute, and England never looked back. Having reached the semi-finals, England fans were beginning to dream again. While Denmark had a very talented squad, the fans were happy that they had avoided Italy and Spain, who were in the other semi-final. But if there's one thing you have learned from this video, is that when England gets too confident, it ends in disappointment. Denmark opened the game with a fantastic free kick. England equalized 9 minutes later as Danish captain Simon Kjær put the ball into his own net. In a cagey affair, England ended up scoring the winner in the 104th minute thanks to Kane. A controversial win, to say the least. Many made the argument that Sterling was not fouled. Regardless, it seems that England had broken the curse. They had made it to their first major tournament final in 55 years. While they were going up against Italy, there was optimism, as this Italy was not like the ones we had seen in previous tournaments. After all, Italy was considered by bookmakers as the 7th favorites to lift the European Cup. In London, with the crowd on their side, England took the lead thanks to Luke Shaw. The stadium exploded as even the most pessimistic English fans were now beginning to believe. But just like the 2018 World Cup, England's moment of happiness was ruined. Bonucci tied the game in the 67th minute. England ended up losing on penalties.
They are Italy!
Euro 2024 was the only exception. For once, England almost matched the ridiculous hype surrounding them. This was a team packed with superstars coming off of incredible club seasons. And unlike previous golden generations, they actually made it all the way to the final. But at the same time, the entire tournament constantly felt like England were dragging themselves forward instead of dominating teams the way people expected them to. Every round felt like England escaping disaster through moments of superstar quality. Bellingham's bicycle kick, Saka's equalizer, Watkins' winner. One moment after another dragged them closer to the trophy, but of course ultimately they fell short. Now maybe the situation will be different. Tuchel is a much more respected and decorated manager than Southgate. He has picked a team based on form rather than name or talent. There is less hype around the team, but for England, that might be the best thing possible. The lower the expectations, the better they perform. To see just how good Harry Kane has been playing before the World Cup, you have to watch this video right here.